Welcome to the Double M Innovation Channel, where you'll find some odd and crazy experiments and many people think just downright dangerous. But that's kind of what you do when you're inventing. I haven't been active on this channel probably for most of the summer. I've been occupied building a deep winter greenhouse on the other channel. It kind of didn't fit the category of this channel. It's an innovation, but most of it's just construction. I'll do a tour later and probably post it on this channel. But first, I'd like to thank all the subscribers. It helps build this channel up and gives a lot of motivation to keep experimenting. I'll leave a link in the description for the other channel that we have. It's called Life in the Outskirts. It's more about homesteading and some construction and just some activities me and my wife do. The greenhouse that I'm building is being built into a side hill. I also built a root cellar into the side hill too. But it's, like I said, it's just mostly construction right now. This greenhouse I'm building is sort of like the deep winter greenhouse that we have in a local location designed by the University of Minnesota, where they can grow food there all winter long. This is a little bit different because it's built into the side hill, so it's mostly underground. So if you want to check out that channel, that might be kind of fun to do. In the video I posted in February 2021, 3 ways I improved some wood stove heating that I have in these insulated rooms in the barn, I wanted to answer some of the questions and the concerns and the scares that people have been getting. I'll go over the main points that people are afraid of, that think I'm going to blow a place up or kill somebody or something like that. I'll probably split it up into 2 videos so it don't get so long and boring. The first concern and fears that I've seen in the comments that I'll try to address is this pot of wax that I'm trying to melt on top of the stove. People are afraid it's going to boil over and spill all around and burn the place down and explode and everything else. But what I'm trying to do is just melt this into a liquid. I'm not trying to increase the temperature any more than 120 to 150 degrees. Some specifications for the paraffin, it's getting real hot in front of here. Some of the specifications for this paraffin wax is that the boiling point is 698 degrees for that to boil. The flash point is 392 to 480 degrees. That's the temperature it needs to be in order to be able to ignite it with a flame. And the melting point is 120 to 150 degrees. And this takes a long time for that to melt. With this is a 10-pound block that was in here, and it takes a long time for that to melt. And right now I've had this stove going for just about 3 hours, I think, and it's like just about 80 degrees in here, and I'm not going to fire this up anymore because it's getting way too hot in here. Of course, you want to be careful in doing something like this, melting wax on a heated surface. This isn't extremely hot, it's like 300 or 400 degrees, and it takes an incredibly long time to melt this much wax. And I'm not going to be moving the pot around or trying to splash it around, or, even, if the bits come on top of the stove, it just makes a mess. It doesn't boil because the surface isn't nowhere near that hot. It could reach the flash point, if you decided you're going to light it for some odd reason. But otherwise, just leave it, slowly evaporate and dry up. It's kind of like a cooking oil. And that's the way I treat it, like a cooking oil. Just like I'm cooking something. You pay attention to it and check the temperature and you check, what's happening. It's still not melted yet. And I'm not heating this up anymore. I'm not going to keep firing up anymore because it's too hot in here and my leg is getting cooked right now. The phase change is what I'm going for here, just to melt it. Because then it absorbs so much heat just to melt it, and then it'll radiate it back out for hours afterwards. Not as quickly as a fire brick. The fire brick will cool off first, but you can come back a lot later and this is still radiating out heat. This obviously isn't enough heat to keep this whole thing to 80 degrees, for the whole day, but it keeps it above freezing in this area, and that's what I want to do, because there's a bathroom in here, and a sink here, where I get water for the chickens, and I just want to keep this, above freezing. But the phase change is what I'm going for, and that's a pretty unique property of paraffin wax. One commenter mentioned that there is such a thing as a phase change sheetrock, and if you do a little search, you can find that there is an experimental sheetrock that contains paraffin that will absorb heat, I think most likely from solar, and then radiate it back, for hours afterwards. And that's being experimented with. And everything here is an experiment. That's what this channel is about. So I treat this just like I'm cooking, just like you're cooking with oil. One thing you don't want to do with melted wax is throw water on it, because then it will splash out, just like if you threw water on hot oil. So you don't want to do that. This is all experiment stuff here. You don't want some little kid to be playing with this or nothing, of course. I mean, these are hot surfaces. And I'm not trying to get this anywhere near the flash point, to cause a fire. I know, like if people are cooking in the kitchen with oil, they can get that oil up there, its flash point, and if you try to throw water on it, that'll just make it worse, because that'll splash it all out. If you do get a fire, like if this was oil got a fire, you just get rid of the oxygen, it'll put it out. So yeah, of course you need to be careful. The next thing I'm going to go over is some adjustments I made to this stove that I don't think many people caught when they looked at the other video. They just see what looks like a standard stove, and they don't understand exactly what was going on there. And so they have, fears when they see like cooler temperatures here that would cause a creosote buildup. So I want to kind of go over that again. Like I said in the other video, I was pretty disappointed in this stove. It seemed kind of like a piece of junk. So I decided I was going to do some experimenting on it to see if I could adjust it a little bit, without altering the structure, to see if I can improve it. Like I learned with a rocket stove or my masonry heater, and I'll try to explain now what exactly I thought I could do to improve it. What I noticed when I was working with the masonry heaters or the rocket stoves, that if you have an insulated combustion chamber, the temperature rises up right away. The heat is contained within that insulation, and you get that efficient burn that burns all those gases that create creosote. And you got to get it up to about 1100 degrees to burn all those creosote gases off. So then what you get left is mostly water vapor and carbon dioxide. That's the exhaust. So that's why you see in this video, I can cool the temperature down without getting a buildup of creosote. But if you had a conventional wood stove going here, you need to maintain your high temperatures, up there 250 degrees, going up into the chimney, to prevent creosote. And of course you need to use dry seasoned wood. There's no shortcuts like you can use wet green wood. That doesn't work. So what I did to try to get that temperature up to that 1100 degrees, that I don't think many people caught on the other video when I explained it, is that I made a small insulated combustion chamber inside this firebox. I built it. It's probably about half the size of the firebox. So we actually got two chambers here within this stove here. There's actually two chambers. And, they got the sides insulated. Pretty close in the center here, I got an insulated wall and I got an insulated ceiling, and you can kind of see right across here is down. So I just have a small combustion chamber, insulated combustion chamber, where the fire takes place. Most of the heat is kicked out the front. And I can only get a little bit of wood in there. It'll last maybe half hour to an hour, and I have to come back and replenish it all the time within that time period. And what that insulated combustion chamber does, it contains the heat, and it raises it up to a high temperature right away. And when I check it with a thermometer, it's way over 1000 degrees in there, and it does burn up all those creosote causing gases, and I don't get any creosote buildup. Now I'll take that apart in another video and I'll show you. I built this one like 4 years ago, and I never had any creosote buildup. But you know, if this was a conventional stove, yes, you do need to keep those temperatures high all the way up. You know, you don't want to go any lower than 250 degrees, you know, when it hits the chimney pipe going out to the roof. But when you get this high temperature, the exhaust that you're getting is water vapor and carbon dioxide. That's mainly what we're getting out of here. So I can lower that down, like you see in that video, without the buildup of creosote. So what I have is a small insulated box inside the larger box of the stove body. And like I showed in the other video, I think most people missed it, is that there is a passage in the center insulated wall that goes into the rest of the stove body. It rolls up over this insulated ceiling and against a baffle plate that is built into the stove. It comes towards the front again, and then it rolls back up across the top of the stove and out to the flue. And all this metal is what absorbs the heat after the combustion is done in here. After the combustion is done in here, it's pretty much done burning. It's just radiating heat back out to here. It's kind of like unconventional meets the conventional. And when people look at it, they just say, hey, that's not by the book. You know, and you're breaking laws, and I'm going to burn the place down and all kinds of stuff. But like I said, this is an experiment, and I've been having great success with this. You know, and I didn't change any of the functioning parts of the stove. This is the draft, and it still has that air wash over the door, and the door doesn't get too hot to where it breaks. But I leave the draft open fully, and I leave that damper open fully so I can get the maximum amount of air going through this, because I want a fast burn. It's those slow, smoldering burns that are low in temperature that makes the creosote that's so dangerous. And they do have, more expensive stoves out there now these days that have that catalytic converter that burns those creosote gases. And they're pretty expensive. And I also have seen, like in the more newer stoves that they have out there, a lot of them have an insulated ceiling over the burn chamber and maybe secondary air burns. They're trying to build stoves that are more efficient. And this is my attempt to try to work with what I have to see if I can bring up the efficiency. And I've had great success with this. I haven't had any creosote built up. I've just been cleaning this out once a year, and there's just fluffy black soot is all. So that's kind of what's going on here. I think it's kind of hard to grasp. Unless you're here, it's hard to understand what's going on. I'll probably make another video on this again to try to explain a little better, because I think this is a way to go to try to increase wood efficiency. Even though the manufacturers are coming out with their own versions of increasing efficiency, and they all work pretty good, but the price gets up there pretty high. This will be the end of this video, and I'll continue in another one addressing some more concerns. So thank you much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Whoa, that's in Fahrenheit, and that's how you wreck your thermometer. I hope I didn't damage this one. I guess it's still working. That fire brick there reads 130 degrees. The side is still 300. Hotter right there. Yeah, pan is there. Yep, now if this was conventional stove with no high temperature burn, that's where the creosote would start forming all the way through this thing.